Hi, I'm Nick Meyer, and this is Crash Course World History. Today we're going to get a little explosive. That's right, we're going to talk about the atomic bomb. The discovery of the atomic bomb was the turning point in World War II, and led us to the most frightening time in the Cold War. Starting off, I'm going to give you a little background on what led us to producing the first atomic bomb. Nuclear fusion was first discovered in 1938 in Germany. Scientists everywhere began exploring ways to harness this new form of energy. They knew if it wasn't controlled properly, it could be used as a bomb more powerful than the world had ever seen. Thanks to scientific refugees from Europe, most notably Hungarian-born scientist Leo Szilard, they talked Albert Einstein into pushing Franklin D. Roosevelt to support the US's atomic bomb funding. By the end of 1939, the government had increased the amount of money going towards funding nuclear fission research. Much of the beginning work happened at New York's Columbia University in Manhattan, which influenced the title, the Manhattan Project. Scientists quickly realized they needed to expand. In late 1942, General Lee Groves assigned theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer to lead work at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico. Now hundreds of scientists are moving down to New Mexico to work on the construction of a nuclear weapon. The group of scientists were aided by the work of Enrico Fermi, which proved a weapon could be created from nuclear fission. The Manhattan Project was the largest military-led scientific research project ever done, coming in at nearly $34 billion today. Scientists didn't like the amount of Army supervision, even though it did help to overcome some technical issues that occurred while constructing the first atomic weapon. In July of 1945, the first atomic bomb was tested in Alamogordo, New Mexico. This bomb produced a mushroom cloud explosion that was more destructive than anything the world had ever seen. The blast was so powerful that some of the project scientists feared it would cause an arms race and questioned even using it in the war. Fast forward a couple weeks and World War II has come to a close in Europe thanks to Polish and Soviet troops. The troops captured Berlin, and then quickly following afterwards there was the unconditional surrender of Germany. But we still have an issue here, you see. Japan is still on the eastern side of Asia fighting. FDR died in April and was succeeded by Vice President Harry Truman. Harry Truman was urged by US military leaders to use the bomb against Japan to make them surrender. Japan not surrendering unconditionally, and Harry Truman also wanting to end the war quickly to save as many American lives as possible, decides to drop the bomb on Japan. Truman gives the order for the first of 2 atomic bombs to be dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The bomb was carried by a US plane named the Enola Gay. The bomb was dropped on August 6, 1945, and instantly killed 80,000 people and caused unparalleled damage. But Japan still did not surrender, so 3 days later, another atomic bomb was dropped on the Japanese city of Nagasaki, and again instantly killed 80,000 people. The Allies accepted Japan's surrender on August 14th, and then on September 2nd, aboard the US battleship Missouri, members of the Japanese government signed Articles of Unconditional Surrender. The war was over, but this did not end the reign of terror that the atomic bomb had created. Fast forward a little to 1949, and the Truman Doctrine is in effect, which commits the president to a containment policy. The Marshall Plan of 1949 succeeded in recovering Western Europe, though the Soviets have taken it as a direct challenge. So it's 1949, which is a pivotal year for the Cold War. The National Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO for short, is formed as a counter-threat to the Soviet Union. Then in August, the Soviet Union tested their first successful nuclear missile, which ended the US's monopoly on nuclear weapons. Then by the end of the year, the Chinese Communist Revolution came to an end. And then the following year, the Chinese entered an alliance with the Soviets. Due to these happenings in the 1950s, the United States National Security Council decided to give the Cold War a new level of priority. Truman showed the urgency with his reactions towards the developments on the Korean Peninsula in 1950. Korea was divided into 2 countries, much like Germany had been at the end of World War II. Though the 2 countries didn't coexist too well, which led to the Korean War. Truman led the effort in the UN to send troops to help Korea fight off the communist invasion. Dwight D. Eisenhower ended the war 3 years later, but the peninsula of Korea remained divided. Eisenhower scaled back US military spending and focused more on nuclear weapons, which stabilized the Cold War. I guess you could say it reached absolute zero. That was a joke for all you chemistry geeks out there. During the 1950s, the United States became very wary of Soviet actions under Khrushchev, who formed the Warsaw Treaty Organization to counter NATO efforts. The development of the WTO, the launch of the satellite Sputnik, the building of the Berlin Wall, and the drastically increasing nuclear arms race, much like the one the scientists on the Manhattan Project feared would happen, induced much fear onto the American people. This was only made worse by the Cuban Revolution of 1959, which led to the Bay of Pigs invasion. In October of 1962, President John F. Kennedy discovers that the Soviet Union is installing nuclear missiles onto Cuban land. This poses a direct threat to any city inside the United States. John F. Kennedy demands that they remove all missiles, thus avoiding the Cuban Missile Crisis to be turned into open war. in Soviet Russia, Khrushchev rules you. I mean, he does, but... During